religious generosity sounds noble, right? But what if the billions in tithes celebrated from pulpits across America are actually functioning more like a hidden tax on the poor?
That's such a thought-provoking way to look at it. You know, I've always wondered about the real impact of religious giving on communities.
Well, here's what really got me thinking. Recent data from the Evangelical Council shows that around 80 to 85% of tithe money never actually makes it to public benefit programs. Instead, it's getting absorbed into what you might call the institutional machine.
Hmm, where exactly is all that money going then?
So, get this, the vast majority goes straight to salaries, building projects, and what they call denominational overhead. We're talking about massive megachurches with state of the art everything, while public infrastructure in the same neighborhoods is literally crumbling. And here's the real kicker, it's often the people who can least afford it who are contributing the most relative to their income.
That's exactly what makes this so concerning. It's like a regressive tax system disguised as voluntary giving.
Right. And you know what's fascinating? When sociologists dig into this, they find that most of this giving stays completely within the boundaries of the local church. It rarely escapes to fund things like hospitals, libraries, or broader social services that could actually help lift people out of poverty.
Well, that certainly challenges the common narrative about religious institutions being these major drivers of social good. How did we get to this point?
You know, Noam Chomsky has this really interesting perspective on this. He talks about how systems of power manufacture consent by creating myths that disguise exploitation. And that's exactly what we're seeing here. This myth of Christian generosity that masks what's essentially economic extraction.
So it's like a perfect PR campaign that's been running for generations.
Exactly. And it's been incredibly effective. I mean, think about it. Pastors regularly boast about how Christians give more than their non-believing neighbors, but they're including all these essentially mandatory tithes in those statistics. It's like counting taxes as charitable giving.
That's fascinating because it creates this double bind, doesn't it? If you question the system, you're not just questioning a financial practice. You're challenging what's been presented as a fundamental aspect of faith.
And that's where the prosperity gospel comes in. It adds this whole other layer of complexity. You've got pastors living these incredibly luxurious lifestyles while preaching to congregations that are often struggling to make ends meet. They're promising material blessings in exchange for faithful giving.
Like a spiritual pyramid scheme.
Well, that's not far off. The money flows up, the promises flow down, and somehow that breakthrough is always just one more faithful tithe away. Meanwhile, studies show that secular giving often has a much more direct impact on actual social needs.
That makes sense, because secular organizations typically start with specific problems they want to solve, rather than institutions they need to maintain.
Exactly. And here's something really interesting. When you look at the long-term economic impact on communities, you start to see these clear patterns. Areas with high concentrations of tithe-demanding churches often show lower rates of small business growth, reduced educational investment, and decreased social mobility.
You know what's particularly striking about that? It suggests that this system might actually be perpetuating the very poverty it claims to address.
And that's the real tragedy here. Because it's not that individual believers aren't generous. Many absolutely are. It's that the system itself seems designed to concentrate resources rather than distribute them effectively.
Well, that raises an important question. What would more effective community support actually look like?
You know, that's really the heart of the matter. When we look at successful models of community development and poverty alleviation, they typically involve direct investment in public infrastructure, education, and social services. It's about creating sustainable systems that lift entire communities, not just maintaining institutional structures.
That's quite different from the closed economic loop we see with traditional tithing.
Absolutely right. And here's what I think is really important to understand. This isn't about attacking faith or religious institutions. It's about being honest about what works and what doesn't when it comes to actually helping people and building stronger communities.
So, what you're saying is we need to separate the mythology from the reality.
Exactly. Because at the end of the day, real generosity isn't about maintaining systems. It's about actually helping people and making our communities better for everyone. And maybe that starts with being willing to look critically at practices we've taken for granted, even when that examination makes us uncomfortable.
That's really what it comes down to, isn't it? The difference between institutional preservation and actual social progress.
As we wrap up here, I think that's the key takeaway. We need to be willing to ask these hard questions and look at the real impact of our giving practices. Because if we really care about helping people and building stronger communities, we can't afford to keep operating on myths and good intentions alone.
Well said. Sometimes the most important conversations are the ones that challenge our long held assumptions.
And maybe that's where real change begins. With honest conversations about what generosity truly means and how we can make it work better for everyone.